Welcome back, home Revamp-Alinea, and Alinea is the start of a new way of doing things. So as you may or may not be able to tell, I am at the new property because as you probably can tell, it is an older property. You can tell by the cabinets and the older granite, but that's not what I'm here to talk about today. I also have notes over here, so if you see me looking off, that is why. But just wanted to talk about the next step in the process. That's getting the other home prepared to be rented out. So just a little background on that home. Bought that house in 2022, brand new construction property, 3-level townhome. I absolutely love this house. You may have heard me say on a previous video that the house just wasn't working for us anymore because of the floor plan with the 3 levels, with 2 bedrooms on the top, main floor in the middle, another bedroom on the bottom. Don't want either of the kids down there on the bottom by themselves. So thus the need to find this house and eventually remodel the entire thing, doing most of it as I can by myself. And now where we are in the process, I am vetting management companies to handle the renting portion of that property. I have no desire to actually act as a landlord. I don't want to find tenants. I don't want to evict tenants. I don't want to collect rent payments. I want to be as not involved as possible. I have a full-time job. I got kids. I'm trying to renovate this house. I don't have time to also play landlord. So I am vetting out management companies who will handle basically all of this for me. This is not my first venture. I actually had a previous townhome that was being rented out. That was a 1975 townhome. I lived there for about 7 years before moving out to the new construction property and renting that one out. I found a management company back then who found the tenants. The tenants were amazing. I fully manifested them because they were everything that I hoped they would be. They paid on time. They took amazing care of the house. When I went back in to clean the house, they had done everything. It was almost like I had never moved out. Like, they took such amazing care of the property. They even painted the cabinets in the kitchen because it was older like this. So they did a little work on their own, and I appreciated it so much because even them just painting the cabinets white was a full facelift to that kitchen. Unfortunately, the management company that I had at that time, they weren't that great. I'll not say their name just to keep from being sued, but I will say that they are the only rental management company that I've ever heard advertised on the radio in Atlanta. So do what you will with that information. But it was such a strain because their fees weren't that bad. Management companies are going to get their cut. And from my experience and research, it seems like they're either going to take a percentage of the rent or they're going to have a flat fee. This company, they had a flat fee, which I was fine with. I think it was about $120 a month. I already wasn't making that much off of that property because of the crazy HOA fees, which is ultimately the reason why I decided to get rid of it. But the management company, anytime my tenant had an issue, they would report it to the management company. The management company would report it to me a day or so later. So by the time I get the information, it's already been over a day since my tenant is dealing with this issue, and then I have to hurry up and scramble to try to find somebody to send out immediately because my tenants were good and I wanted to make sure that I took really good care of them. And I did not like that situation. Like, the main reason why I hired a management company is so that I would not have to be as closely involved or have to panic to get somebody out there. Now, I'll give the disclaimer that management company did have people that they could send. However, I used them once and they charged $250 for a trip, and their diagnosis of the problem was wrong. So I ultimately paid them $250 and they didn't know what they were talking about. So I decided to not use their people anymore. But again, that still put me back in the situation of having to scramble and find somebody to send out to my tenants immediately, knowing that by the time I'm getting the updates on the issue, that they've already experienced it for about a day and a half. So that was just a no-go for me. Also, by the time I cut ties with them, they lost my keys. They had about 3 sets of my keys. They had their 2 sets as well as the ones that my tenants turned in, and to this day, never got those keys back. So I decided then I would never use that management company again. I am down to vetting my last 2, and it's coming down to the fees. The customer service between the last 2 has been pretty great. The communication has been great. The only difference is a minor difference in the fees. So I guess we'll kind of see where we land on that. But fingers crossed that we pick the right ones. But I am trying to pick them as soon as possible, meaning like this week. We just moved out. I'm trying to pick them this week because I need a tenant in there as soon as possible. The longer it takes to get a tenant in there, the longer I am paying 2 mortgages on my 1 income. And of course, that is never a fun thing. So I made sure as soon as we moved out, I had the cleaner come in immediately the next day to start working on it. It's already been cleaned and it is ready to start being shown to tenants. So fingers crossed that someone is in there by the end of the month. But as for now, I can only bet these companies to hope that we get somebody in there soon. Say all of that to say, make sure you are vetting your management companies, vetting everybody in the housing process, because choosing the wrong management company, choosing the wrong inspectors, the wrong appraisals, like anything, if you choose the wrong people and you are not vetting these people, it will turn around and bite you. So make sure you're vetting these people. Granted, the rental management company that I used previously, although I'd heard them advertised on the radio, I did actually have a co-worker slash mentor who had used them on one of his properties, and he had great things to say. I just did not have the same experience. So we're just starting over. But renting in general, I found out from my CPA that apparently America loves landlords. So you get a lot of tax benefits and cuts from renting properties. And I take pride in being able to build like some type of real estate portfolio, because that's not something that's really been done in my family. And again, I don't really, after we find the tenant, and I say we, but I actually mean the property management company, I am pretty much not involved anymore unless there are issues, and I don't foresee there being a whole lot of issues, considering this property that we'll be renting out this go around is a newer construction property as opposed to the one from 1975 where we've had numerous issues come up, because you tend to have that with older houses. But it's also, again, not just the tax benefits in creating a real estate portfolio to kind of create that generational wealth and pass that down, but like the fact that if I decide to ever move back to that home when the kids are older and one of them is fully comfortable being in one of the bedrooms by the front door, I can do that. if I get tired of living in this older house, if I get tired of renovating, remodeling, I can move back. I like having that option because I really do love that home. Like, I picked out the tile, I picked out the granite, I picked out the backsplash. I picked out, I had a lot of input into what went on in this house in the building process. So that house is near and dear to me, and I do want to keep it in my family. That was the plan with the previous house, but again, with HOA fees, they kept climbing. HOA fees were $525 a month in the 1975 townhome. And these homes were about to be falling apart. The HOA was not great. I actually sued them after moving out and selling. But yeah, the goal is to hold on to all of these properties as long as possible, as long as it makes sense. Because I also don't want to just like have an ego stroke to be able to say like, hey, I own all these properties, when I also want to make sure that I'm making the business savvy moves, that if it doesn't make sense to hold on to this property, like the one where it's $525 HOA a month and it covers hardly anything, then you have to also be detached enough to be able to let it go when it doesn't make business sense. So I hope you enjoyed my spiel on the rental process. I have to go over there and do a few minor things. The house has been cleaned, but I also have to go over there and do a few of the cosmetic things, like touch up some of the wall paints and scratches, fill in some of the nail holes from the TV mounts and the pictures and screws and all that other stuff, and paint over that. So I'll take you along for that journey as well when I get started. But if you have any questions as far as renting, buying, selling, anything that I can assist with, drop it in the comments and I will gladly give you any type of tips or advice that I can give based on my experience.